Hello, my name is Mann Rentoy. I have been a classroom teacher for the last 33 years. And the last 10 years I've spent going around the Philippines and around the world, reaching out to teachers, parents, community leaders, championing character formation. And I've been doing it because it's very clear that there is a certain crisis we see in the character, especially among the young people. It is brought about because of the lifestyle of the young people today. And many times I tell parents and teachers, don't blame the young people for this kind of attitude or disposition or mindset that they have because it's just a product of the environment that we see in the world today. Truth is, these young people today, many of them don't know a world without computer. Many of them don't know a world without cell phone. And inside the classroom, as the teacher is just giving the assignment, many of the young people are already thinking, I'm going to check that out in Google later. When I was growing up, I did not have my cell phone. I had my first cell phone when I was already a professional. I started using the computer, in fact, when I was already way into my professional life. And yet today, you can have a 10-year-old kid who has his own cell phone, and it can even be more sophisticated than the cell phone of an adult because the young people today use the cell phone not just for texting and calling. They're in the cell phone, they listen to their music, they watch their videos, they go online, they post in their social media. And so it's totally different. And yet, the call remains to be the same for everyone, for all Catholics, for all Christians, that we are called to make a difference in the world, that we are called to be another Christ where we find ourselves in. And so today, I would like to share with you some ideas on student leadership that is Christ centered and student leadership that makes a big difference in the world today. Some years ago, when I was teaching in the University of Asia in the Pacific, I started a campus organization, a student organization called Catalyst of UANP. Our idea during that time was to get the young people to do things that can make a difference in society. Now, while they're still students, not later as professionals, but now in the university as college students. And so, with a group of PAREF graduates from Southridge, from Woodrose, from Rose Hill, from Westbridge, we banded ourselves together and started organizing activities that could make an impact in society, that could make a difference. And one thing led to another. At a certain point, we were invited to host one of the top speakers on chastity in the world, Jason Everett. And these students decided, let us organize a chastity conference that will not just reach out to 100, not just to 500, not just to 1,000, but thousands of young people. And so, in our naivete, we decided to forge ahead with a project without realizing that it would entail a big expense. In fact, in the end, it cost us 1.1 million pesos, and it would entail many hours of working with hundreds of people. But because we thought this was a great thing, that this can impact the lives of many people, we went on without resources, without even thinking of where we would be able to get the money to pay for the venue, the SMX Convention Hall, which we didn't realize would cost us 720,000 pesos just for the rental for one day. We didn't realize that there would be many difficulties along the way, but the students went ahead. And I remember we even decided, let's go to a pilgrimage to the shrine of Our Lady to ask for her help, because this is not just an ordinary activity that we were organizing. And we partnered with so many other Catholic organizations around in order to try to bring in thousands of young people to listen to Jason Everett talk about the beauty of chastity and the importance of living a good life and a pure life. Since the schedule was on a Saturday afternoon, we thought we might as well have a mass. And so we invited some priests and bishops to come and celebrate. And in the end, there were two bishops and three priests who concelebrated the Mass. Well, to make the long story short, in the end, there were more than 7,000 young people who came to listen to Jason Everett. And in spite of our limited resources, in fact, I would say, in spite of the absence of resources, we were able to get all the necessary expenses to be covered. After the event, we were there in SMX with the organizers, and it was at that moment when we realized, well, somebody else is in charge of Catalyst of UAMP, because if it is something that God wants, He will make it happen. In spite of the absence of resources, the limited manpower, or in spite of the fact that these were all young people without experience in organizing big events like that. But it was at that point when we realized, well, if it is something for the good, if it is coupled with prayer and centered on being able to love God and do the will of God, He will make it happen. And from that point on, Catalyst of UANP would be a more than just an organization, more than just a student club. We would go on to later on organize other chastity conferences with bigger groups. I think it would be after that when we would bring in 15,000 young people to World Trade Center in Pasay City to listen to Chris Stefanik and Leah Darrow talk about the beauty of chastity, the beauty of living the faith and living a good life. And later on, we would also bring back Jason Everett, this time with his wife, Kristalina, and they would address 8,000 young people in PICC, 4,000 in the morning and 4,000 in the afternoon. And later on, it would be Matt Frad and Sarah Swafford who would talk about the beauty of chastity, the importance of fighting against pornography, and the importance of valuing one's chastity and purity. So, what am I trying to drive at? Well, the fact is, while we spoke of a crisis in character among the young people at the start of my presentation, the truth is, you young people are not the problem. You're actually the solution to the problem. It is in your hands. And this is why I want to challenge you, student leaders, to try to see how you can practice a Christ-centered student leadership. That you do your projects not just to be able to say, we organized an event, we had a party, we pushed fundraising activity. Those are nice, those are great things, and they are also learning experiences. But my challenge to you young people is to practice a kind of leadership that can make an impact in society and make a big difference in the lives of many people. And that, I believe, is what it means to be a Christ-centered leader, practicing Christ-centered leadership. When our Lord started preaching, he went to different towns, reaching out to people. Remember that at one point he had as many as 5,000 men, not counting women and children. It was at that time when he multiplied the loaves and fish to be able to feed the big crowd. Now, the gospel tells us that there were 5,000 men, not counting women and children. But you can imagine that most probably there were maybe even more women there than men. Is maybe most of the men were working and they are trying to make a living. But the women and the children were there and they were not counted among those 5,000. And you can imagine that therefore there must have been easily 10, 11, 12,000 who were there. That is the kind of leadership that Jesus had. He was not satisfied with just reaching out to 12 or even just to 72. He wanted to reach out to thousands of people because he needed to get thousands to hear his message of salvation. And so I want to present that as a challenge to you young leaders. If you are going to organize activities, you might as well organize activities that will make the lives of hundreds, thousands of people better. I am very happy whenever I come across announcements in Facebook, in Twitter, in Instagram of young people calling for donations to help typhoon victims, flood victims, or earthquake victims, or victims of calamities that happen in our country or elsewhere. But I'm even more thrilled when I see young people working on being able to do good to many people. And for me, that's the way of living a Christ centered leadership. When you are concerned about being able to make a great impact to as many people. Saint Josemaria had one quotation that I love very much. It goes something like, me, ordinary? No, you're meant to do great things. And that, again, I believe is another quality of being a Christ centered leader. You are not just meant to be an ordinary one, you're meant to do great things, making an impact in the lives of many people. And so I hope you foster that hunger, hunger to be able to do a lot of good to as many people. May that be, in fact, a lifetime motto for you to do as much good to as many people. And you don't have to wait until you are professionals to start being able to do that. As student leaders now in your own school, in your own community, there are many things that you can do that you will be able to do a lot of good. The world needs you. The world needs champions of character, champions of Christ centered leadership. And whether you're in high school or in college, you have the opportunity to be able to do so much good to so many people. For example, starting in your own school, you can actually sit down as student leaders and discuss what can we do so that we make our school a bully-free school, a school that is a kindness zone, a school where no one, absolutely no one, is afraid to go to because they know they will be treated kindly by everyone, by their classmates, by their schoolmates, by their teachers, by everyone involved in the school. And as what I have seen in the experience of Catalyst of UANP, if your intention is great, which is to do good to as many people, God will always find ways. God will always make things possible. The most important thing first is to have that eager desire to be able to do a lot of good to as many people. And then to do it out of love for God, to rely on God's providence, to rely on God's grace, knowing that what you do is really the will of God. And when you do things that way, everything else will follow. And so I hope that through this Jesus centered life conference, you young people will receive the inspiration you need, the motivation, the push, the impetus to go out there and practice a Christ centered leadership, doing a lot of good to so many people, making a difference in society, and changing the world.